There is a specific kind of silence that happens right before your life shatters into pieces. I was sitting in my pickup truck outside a high-end seafood steakhouse in downtown Richmond, staring at my phone as a text message popped up on the screen. It was 6:32 on a rainy Friday night, precisely 10 years to the day after I stood at an altar and promised my high school sweetheart forever. The text said she was trapped at her desk with a massive deadline, followed by 3 small pink hearts and a kiss emoji. She swore she would make it up to me over the weekend and told me how much she loved me. I looked down at the passenger seat where a massive bouquet of stargazers sat in crisp brown paper. They were the exact flowers she held when we walked down the aisle, and I had personally picked them up so I could hand them to her across a candlelit table. My hands were rough and callous from over 15 years of pulling copper wire and mounting heavy breaker panels. I was wearing a cheap tailored jacket from a second-hand shop on Main Street, because running a small electrical outfit does not leave much room for designer suits, but I wanted to look like a man who respected a decade of marriage. I almost turned the key in the ignition and drove straight back to our house. I thought about calling my brother to see if he wanted to grab a burger, or just letting another lonely evening blend into the background of a marriage where my wife was always working late. But the restaurant held an $80 non-refundable deposit, and when you own a small trade business, $80 represents real labor. I decided to walk inside anyway, order a decent meal, drink a standard glass of red wine, and quietly toast 10 years of marriage by myself in the dark corner of a crowded dining room. Stepping into the warm ambient light of the restaurant, the hostess led me toward a small two-top near the back alley window. I placed the bright flowers on the empty wooden chair opposite mine, adjusted my jacket, and picked up the menu. When I glanced up toward the far side of the dining area, my chest tightened so fast I could not draw a full breath. Tucked behind a decorative oak partition in a private corner booth was a familiar silhouette. She was wearing a sleek fitted black dress, the exact one I bought her for Christmas 3 months prior, which she claimed she was saving for a very special occasion. She was not alone at the table. Sitting across from her was an older gentleman with immaculate silver hair, a deep summer tan, and a dark wool suit that likely cost more than my work truck. He leaned forward and gently rested his palm over hers on the white linen tablecloth. They had a bottle of expensive vintage champagne resting in a metal ice bucket beside them. Suddenly, he whispered something across the table, and she threw her head back with a loud, genuine laugh. It was the exact unguarded laugh I had not heard inside our own home in over a year, and she was freely giving it to a total stranger. Before I could even process the image, she leaned across the table and kissed him deeply with a level of passion that had completely vanished from our bedroom months ago. The surrounding noise of the crowded room, the clinking silverware, and the soft background jazz instantly compressed into a deafening roar in my ears. I gripped the wooden edge of my table so hard my knuckles turned ghostly white, and my vision narrowed down to that black dress and the man holding her hands. I stood up, ready to march across the floor, throw that heavy table into their laps, and cause a scene that would shock everyone in the room. I took 2 steps forward before a firm grip closed around my left forearm with surprising force. A calm, low voice ordered me to sit down immediately. I turned around sharply to see a middle-aged woman in a tailored navy blazer standing beside my table. She had sharp gray eyes, dark hair pulled back into a tight bun, and a posture that screamed military precision. I told her to remove her hands before I made a massive mistake, but she did not flinch or loosen her grip. She told me she knew precisely who my wife was, who the man was, and that the real collapse was about to begin. Something about her cold, steady voice made me pause, forcing my racing pulse to slow down just enough to listen. I sank back into my chair, and she sat down in the seat right next to my wilting flowers. She introduced herself as Clara Vance, a licensed private investigator, and slid a small matte business card across the table. Clara explained that she had been hired 3 months ago by the ex-wife of the silver-haired man, whose name was Harrison Vance. He was the chief executive of the private equity firm where my wife worked, and their hidden affair was about to trigger a massive financial catastrophe for him. Clara explained that Harrison had signed a strict morality clause during his previous divorce settlement 3 years ago. If he engaged in another workplace affair within 5 years, he would automatically forfeit $5 million to his former spouse. My wife was his direct assistant, and they had been secretly seeing each other for over 14 months. As Clara laid out the timeline, Every single late night at the office, every unexpected business trip, and every cold distant look from my wife suddenly made painful sense. My entire marriage had been slowly systematically dismantled right under my nose while I was out working job sites. Clara pulled a set of financial papers from her coat and pushed them toward my plate. The documents showed that my wife had opened a hidden account at a regional bank, receiving $15,000 every month through a fake consulting firm managed by Harrison. The balance showed well over $200,000 sitting in an account I never knew existed. While I was pulling extra weekend shifts to cover our mortgage and pay for our home renovations, my wife was quietly amassing a fortune from the man she was sleeping with. My hands trembled with a terrifying cold rage as I read through the numbers. Clara looked me in the eye and offered a straightforward deal. She needed the final photographic proof of them entering the luxury hotel downtown tonight to secure her client $5 million. In exchange, she promised to hand over her complete surveillance file, including bank records, hotel logs, and time-stamped photos, directly to my divorce attorney. She told me I could choose to make a loud public scene right now that would yield nothing but embarrassment, or I could remain patient, walk out quietly, and completely dismantle my wife in a courtroom where it actually mattered. I sat in silence for a long moment, looking over at the flowers I brought for a woman who no longer existed. I left cash on the table for my untouched drink, picked up the lilies, and walked out the front doors into the cool night air without ever looking back at their table. I drove straight home, paid the young babysitter, and walked upstairs to check on my 8-year-old son and 5-year-old daughter. Looking at their small sleeping faces in the dim hallway light, the intense anger inside me solidified into a cold, unbreakable resolve to protect them at all costs. The very next morning, I met with a high-powered family attorney named Warren Hayes in downtown Richmond. I handed him Clara Vance's initial files, and his eyes lit up as he reviewed the evidence of infidelity and hidden marital assets. Warren explained that Virginia courts take a very hard stance on spouse concealment of money and systematic deception during divorce proceedings. He assured me that with this level of airtight documentation, we could secure full ownership of our family home, a fair division of assets, and primary physical custody of our 2 young children. 3 weeks later, my wife was formally served with divorce papers right in the lobby of her corporate office in front of her co-workers. That evening, she burst through our front door in tears, frantically demanding to know why I was ruining our family over a few busy nights at work. I sat calmly at the kitchen table, took a sip of water, and recited the exact dates, hotel room numbers, and financial deposits from her secret account. The color drained from her face as she collapsed onto the floor, realizing that her entire hidden world had been thoroughly exposed beyond any defense. Over the next 4 months, the legal proceedings unfolded with absolute precision. Because of the overwhelming evidence of her financial fraud and continuous deceit, the judge granted me primary custody of our children and full possession of our home. Meanwhile, Clara's client successfully enforced the morality clause, forcing Harrison to pay out millions, which led to a massive public scandal that destroyed his investment firm. My wife was promptly terminated from her position without a severance package or a professional reference, leaving her with nothing but the severe consequences of her own choices. It has been over a year since that fateful night at the steakhouse, and our lives have finally settled into a peaceful routine. Business at my electrical company is stronger than ever, and I spend my evenings helping my son practice his baseball pitch and reading bedtime stories to my daughter. The path through intense betrayal was long and painful, but keeping my composure saved my family and gave my children a stable home. True strength is not about reacting in a moment of fury, but about having the patience to let justice handle the people who take your kindness for weakness. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another video. What would you have done if you found yourself sitting 2 tables away from a cheating spouse? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments section down below. If you want to watch another powerful narrative about cold justice and unexpected turns, click on the video showing on your screen right now.